The Bhaktivedanta Players present We Are the Ape Men, an internet radio drama written by Radha Mohan Das and Vipramukhya Swami.
Dr. Rowe?
Come in, Scott. Please have a seat.
You mean here?
Yes, right there in that chair. Make yourself comfortable.
Thank you.
So, how do you feel today?
Fine. How do you feel?
We're talking about you, not me.
Yes, I know.
Now, in our last session, you were telling me about your so-called experiment.
You really think I'm insane, don't you, Dr. Rowe?
I wouldn't put it as bluntly as that. My job is simply to hear what you have to say.
So you do think I'm insane? After all, that's why I'm here, isn't it?
I don't think that at all.
No, I suppose you don't. You've probably got a more sophisticated word for it. Psychotic, perhaps, or delusional. My colleagues, they know I'm speaking the truth.
You mean the people that brought you here?
They just dumped me here simply to cut me off from the scientific community by branding me as a crank. Do you understand, Dr. Rowe?
Yes, Scott, I understand. We discussed that last week.
And the week before. And the week before that.
And we shall continue to discuss it as long as you feel it's important.
That's it. We'll just keep discussing, won't we? For you, this is just a little game. But I'm not an ordinary patient, Dr. Rowe. There's nothing wrong with me, and I don't belong here!
And you don't belong here because you think you are a famous research archaeologist.
And an anthropologist. Professor Scott Jeremy Cunnings. I got my PhDs at Cambridge in 1972 and 1974, and later run a research institute for many, many years.
You know, there's no record of a Scott J. Cunnings in Cambridge during that time.
No? They're obviously very thorough. They've wiped my name right off the map. They're trying to make it appear that I never existed. Don't you understand? They don't want the public to hear what I've discovered. That's why.
And this has something to do with the work you were involved with at Avebury. Is that right?
At the Avebury Stone Circle in Wiltshire, about 50 kilometres from Stonehenge.
You said you were doing research there. An archaeological dig, perhaps?
No, I told you last week. There was no dig. I was part of a top-secret experiment involving the most revolutionary breakthrough in known history.
You mentioned that last week. What was it again? Time travel. So why do you feel you chose to perform your experiments in Avebury?
It clearly has a long history, as the entire village is surrounded by the largest stone circle in Britain. So, we rented an old detached cottage. This gave us the privacy required.
You mean to travel through time?
Yes. A team of NATO military scientists realized the time-space wormhole was feasible within the framework of Einstein's theory. This discovery led to the endorsement of those previously involved with the Montauk project on Long Island.
I see. And you feel this has something to do with you as a research scientist?
I was among those commissioned to examine time travel as a feasible means of proving archaeological and evolutionary theories.
Oh, yes?
Our plans were to send human beings into mankind's history, you see, and prove we had achieved this by bringing back a living specimen of primitive man. Meanwhile, I thought we could uncover the ancient secrets of the stone circles.
Go on.
So, it all began last June. Key scientists from around the Western world had secretly gathered. I was one of the 2 men chosen to sit in the time capsule, mainly because of my experience in anthropology. My partner was Brad Appleson from the U.S. Marines.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's all systems go. We're on the threshold of the greatest military discovery in history. War will never be the same again. Once the world realizes that NATO has the ability to send men back in time, no one will ever underestimate or challenge the face of democracy.
May I remind you, General Edrin, that this is just as much an experiment concerning scientific interests as it is simply a military initiative.
Yes, of course. I realize that. That's why you're here.
Both men are strapped and ready to go, sir.
Good.
So, Brad, you ready?
Yeah, okay, no problem.
Professor Cunnings.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, fasten the door shut.
Professor Von Braun.
Sehr gut. Now, everyone, make sure they are well behind the white line painted on the floor. Dankeschön. Everyone, now stand by.
They've gone. It worked.
Congratulations. It all works very hard.
Very good.
This is a wonderful achievement and shall be written down in history as such. Thank you, General Edrin, for your presence here. So, Dr. O, Brad and I sat upright in our seats as we moved steadily backwards in time.
What was it like?
Frightening. Difficult to describe. Like an impossible dream. Time running backwards, that is. The old becoming young, buildings dissolving before our eyes. Night and day flickered by like a fluorescent light. I wasn't sure what was pounding faster, our race through time, or my heart. Brad next to me seemed relatively relaxed, but it was difficult to tell. At a certain point, we accelerated the pace, and our computer reported we were traveling backwards at 1 year a second. At this point, I started to feel a little sick. A strong sense of dizziness began to affect us both.
Interesting, Scott. Very interesting. So when did you stop?
Initially, around 3000 BC.
3000 BC. That's a long way back, but surely not far enough to discover Ape Men.
Obviously not, but that was the estimated age of the stone circles. I wanted to see how they were built. We found ourselves standing in dense forest. It was cold, damp and hauntingly quiet. Armed with the teeth, Brad explored in the direction of one of the stones. Meanwhile, I stayed behind, safeguarding our equipment.
This stone seems remarkably similar to what it was in the 21st century. A little less eroded, perhaps. Ow! Damn brambles. My ankle.
Brad had severely sprained his ankle, so it became my duty to be the scout in the historic world. Soon we journeyed once more, leaping in successive stages. 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 BC and more. The millennium sped backwards as if they were only moments in time. Yet nothing much appeared to change. Trees outside came and went, but the forest remained. I was surprised in particular, as I expected to observe at least an early settlement of some description. It began to dawn on me that these stone circles were much older than I had imagined. The last ice age came and went before our eyes like a white mask, stealing thousands of years in one go. Then finally, Brad brought us to a standstill. What year is this?
500,000 years BC.
500,000? We weren't supposed to come this far back. Primitive man would not have even have left Africa yet.
I'm just following orders. Come on. You have to get out and look around this time. I still can't walk.
Outside, the landscape had changed. We were leaning halfway down a grassy slope. The air was clean and fresh, and the weather warm. I saw parrots, as if we were in a tropical forest. Slowly I ventured up the side of the slope, gripping a revolver nervously in my hand with a stun gun in my pocket.
Professor, I want to keep in radio contact. Tell me about everything you see.
Okay, will do.
Why did I have to sprain my ankle? All I can see from here are trees and a river over there.
Soon I managed to scramble my way to a good vantage point.
Hey, Professor, do you see any evidence of pre-human life? Remember, we want to try to capture something to prove Darwin's theory once and for all. Hey, tell me, what can you see, Professor? Professor, come in, Professor.
I have never been so shocked in all my life. I was about to grab my binoculars, which were dangling awkwardly round my neck. But when my eyes scanned what I thought to be a prehistoric landscape, I nearly lost my balance.
Hey, Professor, can you hear me? Come in, Professor.
Brad, you're not going to believe this. In the distance, I saw a spectacular skyline of golden spirals, domes, pyramids, towers, marble palaces and stone archways gleaming proudly in the horizon like a heavenly apparition. All my years of study and all my assumptions collapsed, as it became only too evident what lay before me was a highly advanced civilization.
Can you answer me? Can you see any signs of primitive life?
To say the least, Brad.
Hey, wait a minute. I'm seeing something now. I don't know if you can see it. Something in the distance flying over the horizon, over to the south. Like a plane.
Brad, I really don't know how we're going to explain all this to everyone back home.
I can see it more clearly now. It's not exactly a plane. It's a silver disc, like a flying saucer or something. I don't believe it. It's shooting across the sky. Look at the speed of it.
Yes, I see it too. It's going, see? It's gone.
What the hell was that? A prehistoric UFO?
I don't know, Brad. But you have no idea what I can see from here.
What do you mean? Wait a minute. I'm going to try to hobble around to look too. My ankle. I'll head down the hill. You try the other side.
I fumbled my way towards the Golden City down a hillside of tall, clustered grass. Meanwhile, Brad explored elsewhere. Before too long, I discovered a broad, winding, stony path, and quickly informed my colleague.
Listen, Professor, if you see anyone coming, keep your involvement to an absolute minimum. Remember what the manual recommended.
Maybe I was brave, or maybe I was simply foolish, but naively I began to follow the path towards the city. To be frank, as an anthropologist, I calculated that any civilization capable of architectural wonders would certainly have a highly sophisticated culture. I wanted to know who these people could be. Were they aliens or some ancient unknown Earth civilization?
I'm in a beautiful garden. I have never seen so many kinds of flowers in one place, Professor. God, they're huge. Wow, they're aromatic. Nearby, there's neatly trimmed hedges. And get this, Professor, a water fountain. A water fountain. What the hell is going on here? I'm just walking under a massive stone archway now. Hey, I can see a field of cows. Fat cows. And you know what else?